I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel, this is a thing I didn't know about until a couple of years ago when a friend of mine got sick in the south of France. He was on holiday down there and he had to go into a French hospital. And of course, you know, you have to pay for it. It's private over there. It is for foreigners anyway. So he has some very expensive treatment over about 2 or 3 days. And I didn't realise, but because he's obviously British, NHS patient, when he came back to Britain, you can charge the NHS for your emergency medical treatment. So I think the NHS cops up about 25,000 quid for him. But that is what we are all allowed to do, and in some ways I quite like that. It's a nice safety net for British citizens when they're abroad if they get sick. But that notwithstanding, of course, it is a system that we now learn is being egregiously abused. Who by? Pregnant women. We're talking about foreign national women who live here. So they're foreign women, mainly Europeans, who live in Britain, to have their baby. They get pregnant, to have their babies. Fairly natural instinct, I suppose. They go home to their home countries to give birth. And then they sort of hang around with their families for a bit and all in the lovely baby. And then they come back and then they charge the NHS for having had a baby in this foreign country, their country. Now, you might think, oh, well, that must be rare. Not really. Over the past 5 years, 4,000 women have done this, and it has cost the NHS, as you quite rightly pointed out, Isabel, in fact, you, me, and every taxpayer in Britain, a staggering £3.1 million. So foreign women going back to their home countries to give birth, then coming back to Britain and charging the NHS for their troubles. Unbelievable.
It really is so unbelievable that when I was tipped off about this, I literally didn't believe it. I was like, no, this is completely the wrong way round, because we also have women coming from Africa and all over other parts of the world coming specifically to have their babies in the UK. So that's the better known about kind of form of maternity health tourism. This is a sort of reverse of that. And in a way, it does sort of beg the question about the standard of maternity services in the UK. If people from Eastern Europe actually think, I think that we might actually get at least as good a care or possibly better back home. You know, NHS envy of the world. Well, maybe if you live in Somalia, less so if you're Polish and you're actually opting to go home to have your baby and then expect the rest of us mugs to pick up the tab. Quite extraordinary. So I sort of fed this tip off into the brilliant Talk investigative machine, and we got back this data under sort of freedom of information, I think. Which
freedom of information request. I'll just go through some of the countries where their pregnant mums have been making use of this extraordinary system. Top of the list was Poland. 892 Polish women had their babies paid for by the NHS abroad, followed by Germany, 511, Slovakia, 481, the Czech Republic, 439, Belgium, 343, and this was all between 2020 and 2024. I mean, if you think about it, you don't need to go to Belgium, do you, to have you? These people are doing it, I think, purely for family reasons. You know, I'll go back and have my baby with my family. And then probably, let's be honest, raking in a bit of a profit with all of this, probably making a few grand as well. I mean, if you go back to have a baby in Poland and you'll say, shall we say there for, I don't know, 5 days a week, I mean, that's going to rack up quite a big bill.
Undoubtedly so, and this is a sort of tip of the iceberg on the abuse of the NHS by all sorts of foreign nationals. You know, I recently found myself in accident emergency in Israel, and I'd had a minor accident, but I had hit my head quite hard. Nothing glamorous. I fell off an e-scooter, complete muppet thing to do, but I actually was.
I'm tempted to say serves you right, but I won't.
Well, I wasn't on any roads, let's put it that way, so I wouldn't have annoyed you, Kev. And what struck me about it, I was in quite a bad way actually, but I went to a brilliant hospital there. But head injury or no head injury, and that's what I had. You know, although it was minor, they didn't know it was that minor. The first thing they do is ask you for your credit card. You know, you're not getting in without producing payment, and that is what we don't do here in the UK. And in fact, when I began looking into this sort of reverse maternity health tourism story, I discovered that there's I mean, perhaps this is no surprise, there's a number of organisations and charities in the UK that are actively encouraging people to use the system in this way. I would use the word abuse. And what their trumpet is, you've guessed it, the European Convention on Human Rights.
Oh, of course.
And it is under ECHR, according to these various maternity rights charities, that anyone in the world can come to the UK and demand to be treated for maternity services. And under ECHR, apparently the NHS is legally obliged to provide that service. And if you can't pay, these charities tell people, whether they're or pressure groups, whatever they are, if you can't pay, you're still entitled to the care. So what the NHS does at that point is says, well, the cost of your care was £3,000. Here's the bill, but we know you probably aren't going to pay it, so we're discharging you, and we'll chase you up. We'll give you a call in a few weeks' time and see if you wouldn't mind paying. And of course, a lot of this never gets recovered.
Yeah, as you say, I mean, we know about the worrying syndrome of health tourists coming here because they know the NHS is free, so they trump up an emergency and go and get free treatment. But now we know it's going the other way round, but always the NHS picking up the bill. The sucker NHS.
Whichever direction it's going in, it's the NHS, in other words, us that picks up the bill.
That's the point.
No wonder the waiting lists aren't coming down very much.
Yeah, and no wonder today it emerged that satisfaction with the NHS, particularly due to dentistry and the waiting lists, is at an all-time low. So thanks very much, Health Secretary Wes Streeting, for fixing the broken NHS. Honestly, this lot couldn't fix anything. I was trying to think of an analogy there, but I didn't come up with one. I should say an NHS Business Service Authority spokesman, for it is, I guess, the NHS Business Services Authority who presides over this ridiculous system. This spokesman said, people must be legally resident in the UK to receive a maternity S2. Applicants are subject to a residency check. If they are not a UK or Irish national, they must supply evidence of their right to reside in the UK. Well, that's something, but I would suggest that we just end this system. It's ridiculous because but mothers are clearly deliberately using it. If they happen to be, I suppose you don't accidentally give birth to you. Oh, I never saw that coming. So, but I mean, I suppose if they happen to have reasons to be in Poland or whatever at the time and they're both okay, but they're clearly deliberately planning this, and I bet you they end up with cash in their pockets as well. It's a scam. It's a scam.
Undoubtedly, there will be some sleight of hand there. I mean, it's just obviously too good to be true, isn't it?
It sure is. It sure is. Listen, when we come back, Isabel, we're going to talk about. We mentioned it the other week, but I think it's getting very worrying. We talked about it the other day. These British MPs who are effectively MPs for Islam, who don't seem to. There's about 7 of them, and they don't seem to ever talk about any British problems. They just talk about Gaza, Palestine. They promote first cousin marriage. You know, they say, well, it's okay in Muslim countries. We should have it in Britain. No, it's bad for the kids. They come out not quite right, you know, so I don't think so. Also, you know, they want blasphemy laws back, so we can't burn the Quran. I'm not saying everybody wants to go out and burn the Quran, but if you want to, you should be able to, just like you should be able to burn the Bible. So they want to take us back to the Dark Ages, and now they're campaigning for an airport in Kashmir. I mean, this is a worrying, I would suggest, abuse of British democracy. I don't quite know what we can do about it.